Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Radical Dad Podcast. This is our intro episode, which means the first thing on the list is to meet the host. My name is Dakota. I'm a dad-to-be. Very excited to be saying that. And we'll touch on that in just a few minutes. Next up, the better half of the podcast, Cahill, or as we like to call him, Kev. Kev, now time to introduce yourself.
How you guys doing? I'm a dad of a daughter of the stage 3, and I got one on the way. So it's a blessing to be here, man.
So that's kind of what we're going to be diving into in this episode, is kind of figuring out who we are, what we stand for, and kind of what we're going to be experiencing in this podcast. This podcast is for the dads, by the dads. So we're going to be touching on a lot of different things. The first thing we're probably going to touch on the most is kind of who Kev and I are, and kind of what made us want to join this podcast or start the podcast in general. Obviously, like you said before, he's already a dad. I'm a soon-to-be dad. I've gotten to pick his brain over the course of the last couple months. Figure out some things that I need to be working on beforehand, but just kind of understanding the podcast itself, why we wanted to create that. So, Kev, I'll start with you. What kind of got you into, the thought or the creation of what we're doing right now?
To be honest, talking to you and I know you've done some different other podcasts, and the fact that it's crazy to believe it that we're on the same journey with both our wives doing IVF, and crazy enough, the list goes on. With us having the same facility, having the same doctor, it's crazy. So once you pick my brain on that, I was like, man, that's something I could get behind. Because crazy that to think that you and me both are two guys that work at the same place, but going through IVF, the journey within itself is just it's a wild ride, but it's one of those ones that will test you. So the fact that you came to me and thought of this idea, man, I was on board from the jump.
Yeah, and like Kevin mentioned before, like Kevin and I met just a few short months ago. I feel like I've known him my entire life just because Kevin and I bonded right out of the gate. But we work at the same place and just connected right out of the gate. I didn't share like early and often what we were going through, and he didn't really do it out of the gate either. It just kind of happened out of chance, right? We were just kind of talking in passing and mentioned that he was going through IVF, or his wife and him were going through IVF and what they were going through, and I had mentioned, hey, like I am too, and it's kind of weird to say we bonded over that, but I think that's the cool part about IVF that most people don't talk about is it's kind of taboo to talk about, and the people that are going through it don't often share openly what they're going through because it's tough, right? But to have a guy like you working at the same place I am and happen to be going through the same thing that we're going through together, we just kind of created that bond and that friendship, and I'm very excited that we met each other and got to talk about obviously your story, but also you heard mine.
Right.
But no, it's really cool, and the IVF community has been really, 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 I would say, influential to me because I didn't know what to expect. I mean, you'd obviously been through it. You have a daughter who is a product of that, and that's a blessing for sure.
I agree.
And that was something that my wife and I were chasing. But hearing a success story and hearing obviously the goods come with the bads, sometimes come with the uglies. The IVF community in and of itself has been really crucial to our process, and having somebody like you and your wife accept me and my wife that are going through it. I mean, this is a lifelong friendship for sure.
I definitely agree. It's when you think about the whole picture of it, and then the things that our wives have to do in order to have that family, it teaches you patience, it teaches you to be humble, but once you finally get there, you realize it's a blessing. Everything works on God's timing. So for us to come together like this, man, it's worthwhile. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it was like meant to be.
Yeah, and I want to touch on something that you just mentioned there, and I think why I don't know, maybe took a second for me to realize is being humble, right? Like this whole process is very humbling. Like you can't get too high, you can't get too low. Everything just kind of brings you back down.
Hmm.
with every test, with every doctor appointment, with every sort of good news. But at the same time, you're kind of waiting for that pin to drop. Like, is it too good to be true? Like, should we get
Right.
too excited? Should we be excited? So that's a really good word to use in this scenario. Is very humbling. Is
Oh
this
yeah.
whole process of the journey to becoming a dad? Like a lot of us, I'm sure out there have that want and have that desire to become a dad, or if they're not already a dad, fulfilling those shoes. Like it's a huge undertaking. It's a huge job. It requires a lot of time, effort, sacrifice.
Hmm.
But going through IVF, I feel like it puts you in more of a realization and more of an understanding of what that sacrifice actually is, because you're working towards something that by the grace of God is going to happen. And that's why I've really enjoyed hearing your wife and your stories. Is like it's when it happens, it's a miracle.
It definitely does. You know, going back to that, with us, going back and forth and telling each other's journeys on the IVF process, and man, when you would give me updates on y'all's, and I was like, man, ecstatic, and I remember talking. He was like, well, I hope I have this, and I'm like, yeah. Yeah, you know what? That would be nice. That would be nice, And then boom, once we got the answer of what you was having, my boy, I was like, hey, our kids gonna be best friends. All right.
Yeah,
Be
absolutely.
best
And
friends.
and it's so fun too. It's like my wife has been a part of her kind of inner circle of IVF people that she's
Yep.
communicated
Yep.
with and talked to and understood their stories and everybody and obviously Kevin and I are just two people, and everybody has their own stories of how they've gotten to fatherhood or what it took to get there. And that's cool because not everybody's story is going to be the same.
Right.
But for Kevin and I, we kind of resonate with IVF because that's the process that we took, and that's the process that we went through, and created a bond and a friendship over.
Right.
And that's, I think, the beauty of IVF is you never know what it's going to look like or how you're going through it. And that's why I think every story is so unique, and every story is you know it's so meaningful and impactful to just you, your spouse, and just everybody around you. Because either and that's the thing that we've learned a lot too is it takes more than just two people. It takes a
Oh yeah.
village. It takes friends. It takes family. It takes everyone in between, to kind of make that process a little bit more easy to understand.
Yeah. You know, we don't, we can't physically feel what our ladies go through. With the amount of shots and having to take this pill at this time. All these doctor's appointment. But you learn to understand it more once they go into depth and start explaining. Because at first, she was like, well, we're gonna have to do IVF. I'm like, oh, I ain't never heard no IVF. And that just probably just me being the guy. I have no idea what IVF is. But once you start breaking stuff down, and just like you mentioned, her, your lady joining groups and stuff, she was doing the exact same thing, on
Mhm.
Facebook groups, and oh babe, you can't believe this story, like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I'm like, oh, okay. Look, baby, look, when it comes to this IVF stuff, I need you to dumb it down just a little bit. Like, talk to me like I'm a fifth grader. Because I could understand some of it, but then some of it is just so far-fetched, like out of my head. I'm like, I can't, I can't grasp it. But once you start paying attention, and you start, okay, all right, well, you start sensing like maybe some things are being more repetitive. Like, okay, all right,
Mhm.
now I know this is important. you know
Mhm.
so there's just the whole thing of it, just it's a long journey, and when it finally happens, it's like, whew, all right, okay, well, now it's time to get serious, because now you got a kid. So,
Mhm.
like, this is what we've
I
been waiting for.
I think it's funny that you brought up like trying to learn, and I think that's one of the things that I've been fascinated with for the process. I wouldn't say I'm someone who enjoys learning. Wasn't a great student in school, but when it came to this, and I tell people all the time, I'm so glad to be I'm so thankful to be born in a generation of science. Um, and going through IVF and learning all these things. And there's so many different acronyms and there's so many different
Oh,
tests and so many different medications and whatnot and things to learn and like when to take what and what. And my wife, thank God she's so smart. She's made it really easy for me to understand, what medications do what or what acronym stands for what. And hey, this is important here. I mean, everything in IVF is important. At some point, it leads to
right,
the grand reveal of obviously a child. But understanding all of that, trying to really educate myself on top of what she's giving me as far as education, because our wives are very smart individuals. They try to engross themselves in
right.
what they're going through. I mean, as they
Yep.
should, right? And
Yeah.
so they're feeding us information. Then yeah, Kevin and I on the side also looking up. What did she just say? Like I know I heard that correctly, right?
Right.
And so it's a very cool experience. I say it's cool because like I said, I'm a dad to be, and Kevin's is going through the same process. Um, it's rewarding. I always told myself early and often you got to trust the process, even though when it's hard, you still gotta keep the faith and you still gotta trust it a little bit because it's gonna work out. You just gotta keep telling yourself that. But yeah, educating yourself on everything when it comes to what the ladies are going through. Whew, I'm sitting in the corner just cheering them on. Like I'm the best cheerleader they have. But whew, my God, they are going through a lot.
That they are, man. You just gotta be patient, just and listen. And
Yeah,
listen. That's the biggest thing. Listen,
yeah,
because the more you listen, the more that you can actually start to understand, and let alone just ask questions. It's kind of like being in school where you're afraid to ask questions. You might get scolded, might get in trouble. But no, don't be afraid to ask them questions. You don't understand something. Well, look, baby, look, talk to me like I'm a fifth grader. Like dumb it
mhm.
down. I remember she went to an appointment once, and she texted me what she texted me, and she texted me in her own words, and I go, babe, I'm not gonna lie. I don't understand any of this. She she used ChatGPT to break it down like it was talking to like a fifth grader, and it was like pretty much it was like talking about like fish. There's a fish school, this, that, and the third, and I was like, okay, I got it now. So
I mean, I think that's the whole point of like trying to really understand. Like we're not the ones taking pills. We're not the ones taking injections and
right,
putting our bodies through a lot of stuff. And I think that's the part that I had the biggest problem with is like you know I hate seeing my wife go through anything. Anything that looks painful or
yep,
could be harmful to her body or whatnot. And like obviously this is for a good thing.
hmm,
But like trying to really feel like I was there even when I really couldn't be, right? Like I'm
right,
not the one taking the injections, I'm not the one taking the shots, I'm not getting my blood drawn every week.
yep.
We're not in those shoes. So like how do you feel like, and I'll kind of tell my side and then, maybe you can give yours, but like, how did you feel early in that process of being like, how do I feel? How do I be there without being there? Right? So like what did you feel like when your wife was going through that? Like what did you feel like you had to do? What did you feel like you couldn't do? Like where were you at in that process?
For me, it's just making sure that I was there. You know, being there mentally, physically, and spiritually. So I would ask her questions. And with that being said, like granted, can't show up to every appointment. But guess what? When I know about time you then got to the house, I'm showing you a text. How did your appointment go? What
Mm-hmm.
what did it say? And she would go in depth. Explain it to me. Okay, all right. So what does that look for next appointment? What we need to do? What we got to get going. Do you need me to go get anything to help you prepare for this journey that we're about to embark on? So
Mm-hmm.
just being able to make sure. What I'm saying, just trying to be prepared and making sure that she got what she need and making sure that she know, hey, I'm your backbone. I'm here to support.
Yeah, because I
You know,
think the biggest part and the hardest part too is, and again, like this is a surface level episode. This is an intro episode. We're gonna touch a lot on our IVF journeys and our kind of our walk through IVF from the the husband's perspective, the male perspective in episode
Mhm.
2. So this is a little sneak peek on what you could be hearing here coming up on the second episode. But touching on what I think is the biggest part too is how do you be there emotionally, right? Like that like their
Right.
bodies are taking such a beating, in a sense. They're going through so many injections, they're going through so many pills, they're going through so many things, hormonal changes, like they can be sad one day, they can be happy one day,
Mhm.
but you don't know which which person you're getting necessarily. And it's not to make light of the situation, but it's just like
Right.
they're going through changes in record timing, and they don't really maybe know how to express it in a way. So like for me, my biggest thing was just trying to listen. I'm a
Yep.
huge talker. I mean, heck, I have a podcast, right? I clearly like to talk, but like just
Right.
kind of understanding my role as a listener. Like when she came home from appointments, or when she found something new on, let's say, a Facebook group, or
Right.
something that she read, or somebody else's story she heard of, like being able to shut my mouth. I know it, and Kev works with me every day. Like he knows how hard that is. But being able to listen, because sometimes in those moments, us providing maybe a fix or a solution or a resolution maybe isn't what they want, right? Isn't what they
Right.
want to hear. They just simply want to know that you're listening to them and what they've found out. So
Yep.
I don't know if you kind of went down that road a little bit with your wife, but I definitely did that with mine. I had to learn how to be quiet every once in a
Yep.
while. Again, I know
Yep.
that's hard, and you're going to find out on this podcast, folks. I don't shut up. But being able to understand what a good listener is, because those little things that I could have definitely talked over have been
Right.
super influential in my journey going through IVF with my wife, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember her saying that exact same thing, and now we're going through it. Oh, this is important because of this. This happens because of that.
Mhm.
They're all kind of like interchangeable. They all make sense. So I didn't know if you kind of had walked that same journey as well.
Oh yeah, you know me. I'm a talker too. So that's probably why we get along just fine. But I've also realized that not every response needs a response. You know, but sometimes that could be a double-edged sword because there may be a time I need to respond to something. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, did you want me to have a rebuttal for it? But there's just kind of trying to figure out, because you're with your lady, and you know her. She's your wife, so
Hmm.
when there's times that okay, all right, you know, I can actually say something based off this topic on this, but just it's like you pick and choose. You pick and choose them battles, because sometimes you just gotta sit back in the bleachers and just listen. You know,
Hmm.
they gonna tell you everything that you need to know. You just gotta listen. So just not responding to everything. Just
Hey, there's some there. I'll be candid on this podcast. There are some times where I'll look after she's done saying something, and she's like, "Well, are you gonna say anything?" I was like, "I'm just making sure the full thoughts out, because I
right,
I have I have a response, but like, is it gonna be the response that is needed?" So
right,
it's a good back and forth. We have some good banter, and I know you and your wife do the same, and I think it's awesome. But it's that's the cool thing about this platform that we're developing is being able to talk about our journeys, but also kind of be inclusive to other people's journeys too. Like not everybody's going to have the same journey, and I think that's why this is going to be so fun to kind of watch it develop. Is to kind of
right,
talk about ours, but also understand other people's as well, and that's what I am looking forward to in this podcast, and for our listeners, that's what you're going to be able to look forward to as well in upcoming episodes. Kevin and I have talked about it in length about what we're going to talk about early and often, and most of it's going to be about us and kind of the journeys we've gone through, whether it be parenthood, whether it be soon to be parenthood.
right,
Talk about the D-Day of delivery. Kevin's obviously gone through that, so I'll be able to live vicariously through him, and hopefully kind of take some cool notes and figure out for myself. But like I said at the beginning of the podcast, this is a podcast for the dads by the dads. We urge you to follow us on all of our social medias and tag along for the ride. We're going to be releasing episodes once a week on various topics, and like I said, stay tuned to those socials, and you'll be able to hear or see a little sneak peek here and there about what upcoming episodes we're releasing and what kind of topics we're discussing. We love watching our socials. We'd love for people to comment about things that we should talk about, whether it be that week's topics or topics coming up that you may or may not want to ask a question about, or something that we discussed in later episodes and you're like, hey, can you give us a refresh or maybe your perspective of that? So we open that. We also have an email. If you don't feel like commenting openly on your socials, feel free to DM us, whether it be in a DM or an email. Kevin and I read emails every single day, sometimes twice a day. So we'd love to kind of open this forum up, just not for Kevin and I just to run our mouths for an hour, but we want to hear input from everybody else, right? Like we're all, like I said, for the dads by the dads. This is going to be a platform where we, discuss parenthood, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I know I'm a soon-to-be dad, so I'm going to be experiencing all of it. So. Kev, you got anything else to add as far as what people should be looking forward to with us on this platform?
No, just a dad, soon to be dad. Talking about our journeys and like you said, the good, the bad, and ugly. Just know that we are here for it all. And we want to be able to you guys to feel comfortable enough to hey, let me pick your brain on this. So feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, like I said, we're going to be releasing episodes every Friday. We'll be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Those are the three platforms that I feel like everybody uses. But if you, again, want to reach out to us and have us add a platform that you hit the regular, please do. Please reach out. We would love for this to be just an open forum. Like I said, we're going to run episodes every week. We're going to talk about various, parenting topics. The first couple are probably going to be a lot of not how to's, but like getting to know who we are as individuals, because we're going to be on your radios, we're going to be on your, your car stereos, and you want to know who's behind the voice, right? You want to get to know the people behind it, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of some other topics. I think some of the cool topics are going to be the 72-hour wait before delivery day. I'm excited to hear about that. Obviously, I haven't experienced it, but I believe, watching my brother-in-law go through it with my sister and hearing other people's stories around our office, it's quite the time. It's definitely D-Day, but
Right.
the D-Day before the D-Day.
Yeah. Looking forward to it all, man. Well, we got this thing mapped out. So
We
hopefully,
do have it mapped out. We do have it mapped out. But like I said, please tune into our socials. Please give us a like, a follow, anything you can do to help grow our brand and bring us to your airwaves is greatly appreciated. We'll check our DMs. We'll check our emails. We're excited to see where this goes, and we're excited to have you guys along. Check us out every Friday. There will be a new episode dropping. You'll see us on socials talking about it. So we're looking forward to having you guys a part of the journey. But until next time, folks, see ya.
Peace.